A few years ago, I released this video, where the bulk of it detailed a certain glitch involving final smashes in the in-game camera. The gist of it was that if I used the frame-by-frame advancements in the camera, then used a final smash like that, the game would force me out of the camera to use the final smash, but once the attack was finished, we would be left with this. But while I was working on my supercut and I got to this part of the video, when I tested the glitch just to make sure it was still here, it didn't work anymore. And I knew it wasn't an error of execution because I very thoroughly laid out the steps on how to get it to work in the original video, yet that doesn't do anything now. It was unfortunate because the glitch was really funny, but I made the video in the middle of Smash's development and the glitch got really popular, so it only makes sense that it would be removed. Until I got this message from Candy and Carmel on Discord. They detailed a very similar glitch. And at first I was just kind of assuming that they had the fact from before the game got patched, and they just only now submitted it to me. But when I went to test it out myself... Oh yeah, that's exactly the same thing. Wait, so why is this one working when the other didn't? Well, for this one, it's not me who's using the final smash in the in-game camera settings, it's a CPU. I don't know exactly how they patched it out, but clearly whatever they did failed to account for a CPU's inputs, and yeah, it just happens. Now, I know I've already technically showcased this glitch in the past, but not only do I just hate how my voice sounds in my old videos, but being honest, I was not at all thorough enough with the actual showcasing of the glitch back then. Originally, this video was just going to be a quick reminder that this exists again, yaha, and I just move on to some other stuff, the usual random facts format. But after a while, I decided I just wanted to cover a lot more information and tests about this glitch, because there's actually more to go over than I originally thought. So to get the basics out of the way, first the exact appearance of the glitched camera will vary from stage to stage, and no, using the in-game camera after it's been glitched does not work. But it'll also vary from character to character. Here on the Mario Galaxy stage with Shulk, we can just see more of the background animation and at a slightly different angle. This would suggest that the camera is being moved up super high and facing a different axis. However, with, say, Banjo and Kazooie, we're just facing the starry void of space. No obstacles or anything in the background moving in. And the off-screen bubbles act really weird here, where going to the side or down enough has it loop back up, so I'm not entirely sure where this camera is located, like maybe it's in the center of the stage and it's probably really high up and looking off to the side or something. Or maybe even straight up, I don't know. But if we do this on Kalos, again with Shulk, I guess the stage isn't fully textured enough to cover for this new camera positioning, and we're left with blinding white light instead. Until I pause and it just turns into void. We can see the very top of the stage down here, which once again hints that the camera is super high up. And with Banjo and Kazooie, the void just fills up the entire screen. Rather than testing out every single stage in the game, I just looked at a few others that could potentially be unique. For example, on Rainbow Cruise, I was never able to see any of the stage or the players despite how much you ascend during the stage's duration, though the camera did very slightly pan to match the general motion of the stage. Also, when I got Star KO'd here, that also did not appear anywhere, which is just a good note. Next, I wanted to try out Brinstar Depths to maybe get a look at Kraid from a different angle, but I guess we get sent up too high and that doesn't really do anything. And no, Banjo's angle did not help at all. Now with New Pork City, I was curious if we'd be able to see how the Empire Pork building extends way beyond what we normally see in the background, which is a fact I've gone over before. But when I got it, something a bit weirder happened. For some reason, the top half stuck to what the scene was at beforehand, and the bottom half is what we got to actually see of the stage. No tower or anything, which is kinda weird, but maybe the model is just not extending in this game, or maybe the angle just sucks. And also when I paused, the weird glitch image went away and just became a void, which I guess is just a pretty consistent way to quote-unquote fix that kind of thing. And again, Banjo didn't help us get a better look into anything. And then I wanted to check out Final Destination, whose background is not only larger, but also way more active. And surprisingly, the new camera angle here doesn't clip or anything, and the background seems mostly functional. There are a few transition periods that result in the glitchy void, but for the most part it's just the same background but from a different perspective, which I think actually looks really cool. You'll see more examples of stages throughout the video and at the very end in the outro, but for this section I'll leave it here since I reckon that covers a pretty decent amount of ideas. It's a shame we couldn't ever end up seeing our players during the glitch, but that doesn't mean it's impossible. This was mentioned in the original video as well, but if we make use of Luigi ladders and get an insane amount of height, we can actually see them pass by eventually, which is just really stupid. Here we can see that they're facing a slightly different angle, confirming the difference in axis. I tried to use the final smash I conveniently got while in frame, but I was just a bit short. That's whatever. It was really difficult getting that set up in the first place, given that there was a rabid CPU wreaking havoc on the stage, but it's fine, it's whatever. I tried to see if any character could just get up there on their own through the use of custom smash, but Falco got nowhere close enough, and Kirby was the same story. Like, they're not even kinda close, indicated by how little the off-screen bubble grew. And no, Kirby using the Jump Monado art doesn't help. I don't think it can stack at all with the bunny hood. It felt like he got a bit closer with Banjo's variant of the glitch, but still no dice. And while we're here at Great Bay, I wanted to use this as a control to see if the custom camera angles affected the glitch in any way, but for either the angled or the fixed camera, both just get completely overwritten and replaced with the same glitched position. Now here's where we get into the meat and potatoes. So far we've been doing most of these tests with Shulk, with just a little bit of Banjo on the side. Well, the weird thing is how this is really inconsistent throughout the roster. I didn't test the entire cast, but I did test a lot of characters, primarily the ones that have a cutscene final smash that actually changes the scene for their duration. And out of all of them, all of these ones did not work, no matter what. This is weird because Hero was one of the main testing vessels when I originally covered the glitch, yet here it never happens. And it's worth mentioning how, unlike the last variant, this use of the CPU is not even slightly precise. As long as you're in the frame by frame and they use their final smash on you, you got it, it's good. So you might think, okay, maybe it didn't get fully patched, but instead it only works on some characters regardless of whether or not it's a CPU. Well, no, if I use Shulk again but actually control him, this no longer works, so the CPU is definitely necessary. I guess it just doesn't work on some characters for some reason. And by some, I of course mean most. It's really weird how it doesn't do anything for this many characters. And while a lot of the cast is highlighted in gray here, that's mostly to indicate that I didn't test too thoroughly. But I'm fairly confident that they wouldn't work given that they don't create an entirely new scene, which I believe to be the biggest factor in causing this glitch, as the camera only starts looking glitched after the scene goes back from the transition. I tested out multiple final smashes just to be sure, and yeah, I feel like that's just how that works. So for all intents and purposes now, this is the list we have. But there's still characters in green that we haven't looked at yet. We've seen a lot of Shulk by now, and again for Banjo we just get a pretty zoomed in angle high up somewhere, which on Kalos resulted in the Void. For Falco we also go to the Void, but this is on Mario Galaxy, where Banjo's at least got a visual of the starry sky. Given that the off-screen bubbles are down here, it's possible the camera is just way off to the side. Not to mention that the character's sound effects are actually a lot quieter than usual, which is a really interesting note. So if Falco worked, you can imagine the same is true for the other Star Fox characters. For Wolf, the same Void thing happens, but oddly enough, the off-screen bubbles are up here instead. So maybe the camera is now way down lower for some reason. And for Fox, it's a lot weirder. Since we get the Void, but the name tag is right here, it only shows up if I'm high enough, usually when I respawn, but there's no off-screen bubbles or anything, so it's really hard to tell where this even is. And it's worth noting that the exact effect of these glitches are consistent with each character, and is not dependent on where or when the activation happens. Going over to Mario Kart, I used Falco's Final Smash, and we can see something? So I imagine on stages with more coverage of the background textures, we could avoid the, well, void a bit better. So next, DDD is much the same, creating a void with the positioning seemingly more similar to Wolf. Spoiler alert, we're going to be seeing a lot of these void effects. And while it's funny at first, it gets kind of redundant. So I just started doing tests on Final Destination as well, and sure enough, doing the glitch here still lets us actually see things. I don't really have much to say about what we're looking at other than it's kind of weird but also kind of gnarly. It's like one of those audio visualizer effect thingies. I kind of like it. Corrin's Final Smash is also mostly void, though we can see a tiny bit of the background right over here, which is a bit funky. And bringing it over to Final Destination, it looks like a somewhat similar angle to DDD's, just perhaps more to the left or something. Next is Sora, another void one, and again, really similar to DDD and the others. If anything, this all just shows how unique Fox's actually is, in that no matter what stage I'm on, from what I tested, the screen is covered in void. Again, I still don't really know what that means for the camera's positioning, like did Fox eat it or something? And also, here's Banjo's again on Final Destination, just to keep things consistent. It's pretty awesome, it's pretty cool. So you can see how there's a form of the glitch that's pretty common throughout, where even if they vary slightly on their own, the idea is just really similar. But there's still something else to consider in all this, and this is actually perhaps the biggest question that we can ask. What happens when I use a Final Smash while this glitch is happening? For any of the glitched characters, using their Final Smash will just sort of cause their variant of the glitch, without the need to have a CPU do it in the frame-by-frame setting. Also, funny note, when I used Wolf's Final Smash in the glitch state, the explosion effect that's normally at the end was just not there, so there might be some more layers to this, but it's mostly the same. So what about the other characters, ones who couldn't get the glitch to happen themselves? There's a lot of red on this chart, but that was only testing whether or not they could create the glitch state. So I tested some things out, and there seem to be three main effects. One is nothing. The Final Smash plays out and everything stays basically the same. I found this to be the case for any Final Smash that doesn't manipulate the camera super drastically. The other effect is for Final Smashes that do manipulate the camera, but aren't cutscene Final Smashes. For these ones, they'll actually end up fixing the camera, great as new. Well, maybe not fix. Let me just. There we go, that works. Ignore all the flickering in the background. This didn't really change with other similar Final Smashes, so I'm fine with making it its own consistent category. And I'm not going to test the entire roster just to find out which characters fall under this category, because the effect is kind of simple. What does change this is which Final Smash came beforehand. This was all with Shulk, but if we fix it with Banjo's glitch in progress, also I really like how this angle is above the clouds, it really helps give a better perspective as to where the camera is. But anyways, yeah, this one doesn't really tilt the stage at all, though the background is really freaking out, like a lot. And for Corrin, who gets another pretty good view beforehand, we get a much more tilted stage on the other side, but the background is not really clipping at all. My guess is that if the camera glitches at an angle, that's what causes the stage to stay slanted afterwards. It would explain why Banjo's doesn't, as he seems to be at a normal angle, given how the clouds are completely parallel to him. And it's possible that the higher up and away from the stage you are, the more the background gets destroyed. Which I guess implies that Corrin's Final Smash keeps you pretty close, all things considered. So then I also tested Fox's, given that I kinda don't know where this even is, and its fixed state is actually fixed. No flickering or tilting, which is kinda surprising. So in the end, Shulk's is sort of like the Goldilocks, where he gets both the flickering background and the tilted stage. With that, I did a final test on Northern Cave, just to kind of see what it looks like. And it's actually pretty neat to get a new perspective for all of the many background elements. And just like before, this is what it looks like after the pseudo fix. It's likely consistent for every stage, I can't imagine why it wouldn't be. The flickering is a little bit less noticeable here, but it's still there. And originally I was going to end the video there, until I remembered the third and final category, true cutscene Final Smashes. There were a total of 20 Final Smashes that fit the bill that didn't cause the glitch originally. However, we don't need to worry about causing the glitch anymore because it's already happened. And sure enough, any cutscene Final Smash will change exactly how the camera is broken, bringing our total count to this. Of course, take that with a small grain of salt. It's possible there's some really niche examples I failed to think of, but this is still a very comprehensive list that I did get full footage of. This is gonna all be on the Minecraft stage just to keep things consistent, but I figured now would be a good time to showcase all 28 characters and their personal effects. So here's Yoshi, Fox, which I really like here because you can see the sun and moon go across the screen, Falco, Wario, King Dedede, Mega Man, Wolf, which again I liked because you can see the moon for a little bit, though weirdly enough after that, for one single frame I saw this, which is something. Duck Hunt, Shulk, Ridley, Banjo and Kazooie, Simon, which if you look at the off-screen bubbles you can see how extremely slanted everything is, Richter, who's the same, Corrin, King K. Rool, Sora, Incineroar, Joker, where his special background appears for just a moment before going away and showing this angle. It's worth noting that this effect is different from how the glitch worked in the past, where said special background would stay lingering. Hero, Terry, Byleth, Min Min, Steve, Sephiroth, Pyra, whose effect is confusing in that the off-screen bubbles move in the opposite direction that you're actually going. Mythra, who's surprisingly different from Pyra. Kazuya. And the most unique, which I saved for last intentionally, Captain Falcon. With him, we get something unlike anything else we've ever seen, where we're actually seeing the whole stage. Most of the other ones were pretty similar to the base group that we'd already gone over, so it's not really that crazy, right? But this one may have the most potential out of the entire cast. So for the B-roll of examples that I promised for today's outro, I'll be using Shulk to start the glitch because I like his angle, and then Falcon to get an even better angle, and we can just see what both have in store. It's almost a shame I discovered this so late into the process, because this one angle might be worth a showcase video in and of itself, but hey, I'm happy with what we've covered already. Also, before all that, I just wanted to mention how funny the testing of this was overall. I think the CPUs get a bit scared when you stop moving. Like, I already know that CPUs don't really know what to do when you stand still, but this kind of effect is unique. Like, I'm not sure if it's the frame by frame that's messing them up, but like I would notice that they would do this pattern of shielding, unshielding, and repeat before just randomly deciding, yeah, okay, now is the time to use a final smash. They're dumb, and I love that. But yeah, let's roll that B. I'll mention this here too, but if you discover anything big about this glitch, or honestly have anything else you want to submit for a future random facts video, feel free to join my Discord link down below, and that'll probably be the best place for that. Now, I guess I might as well talk about speculation nonsense. Sakurai recently released his last video on his awesome YouTube channel, and in it I guess he mentioned how he's been working on a game for the past few years or something. Obviously, there's a lot of speculation about whether or not this will be a new Smash game to accompany the Switch's successor, which is likely coming out sometime next year. It's pretty typical for each new major console to get a Smash game to go alongside it, as if we ignore handhelds, that's been the case for every major console since the Nintendo 64. For perspective, Smash Ultimate released at the very end of 2018, so almost 2 years after the Switch released. That was nearly 6 years ago, which is a while. But that could also mean there's plenty of time for them to wait before doing something for Smash on the new console as well. If they could wait 2 years for the Switch, they could probably wait 2 years for the Switch too. And if they do something simple like Smash Ultimate Deluxe, akin to Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, it's possible Sakurai wouldn't even need to be called in for that. Basically, I'm kinda skeptical that the game Sakurai is referencing here is Smash, but I do still think a Smash-related title is going to be on the new console eventually. When I really think about it, this is actually a pretty big time for Nintendo. We're at the edge of a whole new console era. So there's going to be a lot of big things one way or another, and that hasn't really dawned on me yet. Because me and my channel here are still stuck in the Smash sphere. So obviously something Smashed is what I hope for, as that would be really lucrative and fun. But there's a whole lot of other things that could happen that are also big. And that's on top of the stuff that we're already getting. Like Zelda Echoes of Wisdom, which I really loved playing. I'm kind of a Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom hater, I'm not gonna lie. But Echoes of Wisdom, that was super refreshing, super fun. And then we get Mario and Luigi Brotherhood, which I'm super excited to get as well. I just love those games. So yeah, fun times all around. Let me know if you're interested in non-Smash stuff for the channel. I've tried it in the past to mostly poor results, but hey, maybe something more casual could be fun. On the note of the future though, there's rumors that Nintendo's actually going to be officially announcing the Switch's successor sometime really soon, like maybe this week. I feel like I've been hearing something along those lines for a long time now, so I'm not really sure. But it's obvious they're going to talk about it soon, given that they've already announced it for this fiscal year. So if there's ever a direct for it, I'll definitely be streaming it on here if you're at all interested. But with that, I've run out of B-roll and topics, so I'm just going to thank my patrons Raighne, Sil700, Burbo, and everyone else for their support. Stay casual, and I'll see y'all later.